Hi, Anthony. This is Christina from The Upcoming. Congratulations on winning the Evolution Cinematography Icon Award last night. How do you feel being here at Evolution Mallorca 2024, and how important do you think these festivals are for the industry and independent productions?
Hello, I'm Anthony, and I'm here in the Evolution Festival here in Mallorca. I think this festival's glorious. It's very intimate. It's quiet, but it's busy, but it's well concentrated with some good films, and I'm very proud to be part of it. I'm very lucky. I'm also about to see part of a film I shot 12 years ago, which I haven't seen in the cinema since. I think it's very important because all film festivals are about getting people to go back into the cinema, which is the main problem of today's cinema. It's just a problem that people aren't going to the cinema enough. So we have to rejoice in that, and any film festival helps that. So I'm very happy to be here.
Would you like to start by sharing your approach to post-apocalyptic cinematography?
Thinking about post-apocalyptic cinema, which I partly have taken part in, and have recently just been active in a new film with Danny Boyle, which is certainly post-apocalyptic. I wish all the horrible sweet-eating children in the world tonight the most scary Halloween ever, and I hope they all come and see good post-apocalyptic films like 28 Years Later. That would be a good thing to say.
What can fans of the saga expect from 28 Years Later?
People who know the saga of 28 Days Later will sort of recognize the running around and the fear and the horror. But I think hopefully we've developed something a little bit deeper into what a post-apocalyptic society can look like. And you know, we're not competing, but there have been many series like The Last of Us and endless other films that have covered this material. So we've tried to put our own personal slant on the story.
The industry has evolved significantly since 2002 when 28 Days Later came out. How has the visuals and overall tone to the sequel evolved?
How they've evolved. I guess the tone and the sort of atmosphere of this new part of the sequel is a kind of natural development of almost 20 years of the writer, Alex Garland, Danny Boyle, director, me, the artistic team. You know, what we think, it's based on a script that it's clearly further down the line of what was beginning to happen in 28 days and 28 weeks later. But it's no direct link.
And on the dystopian note, Dread is another great film with great costume ideas for Halloween. How do you like working on dystopian world building projects?
I have a very soft spot in my heart for Dread 3D because I loved doing it. It was an unusual task to make a film with a man with a teapot on his head for like 95% of the film. It's a challenge to get the audience to identify with a figure like Judge Dredd. But I think it's a good film, and I think the costume would go down really well on any Halloween night if you can get them in a small size, but no guns.
Could you speak about how you worked with Garland to deliver the film and all the action sequences?
Alex Garland is a very creative writer. We all know that. He's become a very creative director. And the privilege about working with somebody like Alex is he understands how to integrate what could actually be perceived as a writer's concept so deeply into a script that it becomes a real benefit to the actual visual language of the film. He did this with Dread 3D, where we had the slow-mo drug, which then becomes a reason to shoot high-speed cinema, and it becomes a really integral part of what the film finally looks like. And it's, for me as a cinematographer, that's a massive present because it's part of the narrative that he controls. It gives me an enormous present as far as visual language is concerned. He did it in the same way in his new film, which I didn't shoot, which Rob Hardy shot, Civil War, which I think is a much criticized film, but I think it's a very interesting film, where he uses the same essential theme of what a still camera and a film camera can and can't do when recording violence and civil unrest. It's a really intelligent, script-based idea that becomes a massive benefit to, in that case, Rob Hardy and how he visualizes the film. I think he's very clever.
On the topic of very clever directors, one of the directors you've collaborated with many times is Danny Boyle. What, from your perspective, makes him stand out as a director and a collaborator?
I have been very fortunate with many directors. I've had very few unfortunate, unhappy experiences. But Danny has stayed with me. We've gone apart from each other and come back, but he stayed with me over the course of 20 years. And that means, you say this after 3 films working together, you have some of the problems ironed out. You don't have to speak so much. But after 10 films, it's a real privilege. You're like brothers, really, when you're together. We sometimes don't see each other for a long time, but he does stand out as a person who knows me well, and I think has learned to accept and support me even more. Sometimes I'm difficult, sometimes I think he's difficult. That's part of the equation, but I think it's a very comfortable place to be. It's not easy. No films are easy, and he's a fighter, and he fights hard for his films. So, and I do too. So it's always a battle. It's a good battle.
And just to finish things off, what advice would you give someone interested in entering the field of cinematography?
To anybody wanting to enter the field of cinematography, I would encourage them, of course. It's never been better than now because there's so much more democracy around, so much more open-mindedness, I believe, on what you shoot on and why you shoot on. So more stories are being told around the world. It doesn't matter whether it's a 6-minute or a 60-minute or a 2-hour, 4-hour film. The most important thing is to get your story out and get an audience. And that doesn't necessarily require an Alexa 65 or a VistaVision camera. It's just about getting your story out and telling the story. That's the most important thing. And that's a privilege and a benefit and an advantage for the younger people today with less money, less resources, just get their story told.
Thank you.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.